Hi, everyone. I'm going to go over the carbon dioxide and agriculture PowerPoint briefly. Um, and so that if you're at home for cohort B or cohort A, you're absent, you can still get the PowerPoint. So you should start by watching this TED Talk and answering the questions that follow. Some of the TED Talk questions will be on the worksheet. Some of the questions on the worksheet will be on your quiz on Wednesday. So in that PowerPoint, which you should have now watched, they discuss the carbon cycle. And so the carbon cycle is the exchange of carbon through Earth systems. It starts with we have trees here that take in CO2 and emit oxygen, which then animal respiration occurs. We take in the oxygen and emit CO2. So that's one of the small cycles here. There's also organisms that die, and when they die, they break down and release carbon, which goes into our soil here and up through our roots, through root respiration. We have sunlight that comes down, and while it's not part of really carbon, it does allow photosynthesis to happen, which is what allows that CO2 oxygen mini cycle within the carbon cycle here. This dead organism and waste products, also some of it remains buried and continues to be buried to make fossil fuels. So this would be that natural cycle here. And then we have also added auto and factory emissions, which make our carbon cycle off balance because we're emitting too many things then can recycle through. So a shift in one part of this cycle, such as adding our auto and factory emissions, creates a shift in the whole cycle. And oftentimes the change is too big, so the carbon cycle can't keep up. So when we have increased carbon dioxide, we have increased greenhouse gases, which increases the warming, and so it can't keep up. And so this relates to agriculture as well. So agriculture is the cultivating of plants and livestock for the feeding of civilizations, and it affects the carbon cycle and affects our carbon footprint. And many of you probably saw that this was one of the major categories, your food, when you did the carbon and ecological footprint last week. So on your worksheet, you'll answer this warm-up question: what did you eat for dinner last night, and what activities are involved in getting these ingredients to your plate? And then I'll go over the PowerPoint briefly here. So if we think about our food and where it comes from beyond the grocery store or beyond the market that you go to. It has a whole entire supply chain that involves many more steps than we probably even think of when we pick up that apple to purchase. So if we look at these apple supply chain from Washington State, we have the growing, which involves a tremendous amount of energy and work when it comes to water and nutrients and labor. So there's a lot of energy involved into growing our apples. But then there's harvesting, washing, grading, and waxing to keep the apples crisp so that they can be shipped. There's packing. Then you have to distribute it, and this can be distributed all the way across the country. We have apples from Washington that come to us here. There's processing if you make them into all of the other things that apples go into, and then repackaging. And then there's retailing, being sold in stores. And then once you take it home, we prepare them and consume them, where they either can be disposed of or composted or come out as waste. So there's this massive process involved in just getting an apple from the ground to our plates. Similarly, with the chicken supply chain, it's not just the chickens that we're eating, we're also eating what the chickens eat. So we have chicken feed, which is mostly made out of soy and corn. So we have two crops that, similarly to all of this, happen where there's soy growing, harvesting, then there's processing, distributing, shipping just for the soy. And the same with corn. There's growing, harvesting, processing, shipping, transportation, fish as well, because that goes into the feed. So these are overly simplified. There's so many more steps involved. So then once it gets there to here, this processing, we have the poultry producing, processing, retailing, prepping, and consuming. So this could be stretched out so many more steps because there is a lot of energy that goes into making animal products.